Chapter 9. Riley wipes Brooklyn's spit from her cheek with the back of her hand. I expect her face to twist in fury, but she just stares ahead with glassy eyes, her mouth a thin, hard line. I don't see any sign of the girl I thought I knew. This Riley seems to be missing some key ingredient to make her human. She drinks from the wine bottle, then runs her tongue over her lips. How does it feel, bitch? Brooklyn throws herself against her ropes, making the pillar she's tied to groan. She spits again, this time spraying Riley's foot. I should baptize you in the name of Satan. Riley cocks her head to the side, reminding me of a hawk eyeing a mouse. Well then, we have our work cut out for us. Alexis, what's next? We must pray for Brooklyn's soul. I have the passage, Alexis says. I chew on the inside of my cheek as she slits a faded sheet of paper from her Bible's pages. Even now, in the middle of all this, she looks flawless in a white cardigan covered in silver hearts and jean shorts. I take that as a good sign. She wouldn't have dressed nicely if she thought things were going to get violent. Then I'll draw the demon forth. Riley picks up the bottle of holy water. Sophia, I need you. Riley holds her free hand out to me. When I don't immediately take it, she grabs my hand and weaves her fingers through mine, pulling me closer. We can face the demon together. Your strength will be my strength. I try to meet Riley's eyes, looking for some flicker of the Riley I like. The Riley I thought was my friend. Because of the position of the lamp, her eyes are in shadow, and it's her smile that illuminated. It twists into a smirk. Have some faith, she says to me. She grabs Grace's hand and brings her closer into the circle. Alexis begins to read. We exorcise you, impure one, you satanic power. Her clear, steady voice fills the cold corners of the basement. I want to pull my hand away from Riley's, but when I move, she squeezes tighter. Be humble under the powerful hand of God, Alexis says. I shift my attention back to her, wondering where she found the ridiculous passage she's reading. It sounds like something from a bad horror movie. Alexis's voice grows louder. Tremble and flee! She glances up from the Bible and studies Brooklyn's face like she's expecting her to start writhing on the floor or for smoke to pour out of her mouth. But Brooklyn just lifts an eyebrow. Did you find that on Wikipedia? She asks, snickering. Yeah, where did you get that, Lexi? Grace asks, frowning. It's the official prayer for a ritual exorcism, Alexis says. Brooklyn laughs even harder. I don't know why I was worried, she says. Clearly you all are pros. Stop it, Riley snaps. It doesn't matter where the passage came from. What we say isn't as important as what we believe. Riley tips the bottle of holy water over Brooklyn's head. The water dribbles from the bottle, and Brooklyn flinches when it hits her, then blinks and stares at Riley. She tilts her head so the remaining water pours over her face. She shakes her hair out like a dog. Is this so I'll be ready for the wet t-shirt portion of the night? She asks. Riley tightens her grip on the bottle, her smile hardening. She's making fun of us, Riley says. Soph, hand me the salt. I don't move. Riley glares at me. The sooner you help, the sooner all this can be over. Fine. I pull my fingers from Riley's grip. Brooklyn's right. Riley's not a professional. She's just a pissed-off teenage girl. Locking us in here was messed up, but this is just a hazing ritual, something to show Brooklyn who the alpha bitch is. I grab the jar of salt from the floor, thrusting it into Riley's hand. Most girls would just start a burn book. Water drips from Brooklyn's hair. Keep going, Riley urges, and Alexis clears her throat. From the snares of the devil, free us, Lord, she continues, a little less enthusiastic than before. Riley pours the salt in her hand and throws it. I flinch when the salt hits Brooklyn's face, but she squeezes her eyes shut and turns. So it mostly hits her hair. A few tiny white crystals cling to her wet cheeks and the corner of her mouth. Brooklyn runs her tongue along her lips. Next time, get some tequila and a lime to go with that, she says. I bite back a smile. Heathen, Riley hissed. She pours another handful of salt into her palm and whips it into Brooklyn's face. This time it catches her in the nose and mouth. Brooklyn swears under her breath, trying to blink the salt from her eyes. Riley throws another handful at her and then another. When the jar is almost empty, she drops to the floor, her knees inches from Brooklyn's. This isn't enough for you, is it? Riley wraps her fingers in Brooklyn's hair and yanks her head back, forcing her to look up. The corners of Brooklyn's eyes crinkle. Riley. I take a step toward her. This isn't funny anymore. Even Alexis stops reading. This isn't how we're supposed to do it, Alexis says, her voice wavering for the first time. The defiance fades from Brooklyn's eyes. Can't you see what she's doing? Riley says. She's laughing at us. Riley releases Brooklyn's hair roughly and stands. Her eyes dart to the cross hanging from Alexis's neck. I'm the only one watching Brooklyn, and I see her square her shoulders and jerk her hands apart to loosen the ropes. I want to help her, but when I take a step toward her, Brooklyn moves her head back and forth, then points then looks pointedly at the staircase. I frown, but I understand what she's trying to tell me. We're locked down here, and it's 3 against 1. I can't afford to challenge the others yet. We need something stronger, Riley says, leveling her gaze on Alexis's necklace. That. Alexis, let me borrow your cross. Alexis hands me her Bible without a word. She finds the chain at her neck and fumbles with the clasp. The cross drops into her hand. She holds it out for Riley. Riley lifts the cross by its chain. Thanks, Lexi, she says. Riley lets the cross swing pendulum-like before Brooklyn's eyes. I exorcise you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, she says. They're almost the same words she used to baptize me. Brooklyn watches the cross sway. Her angry red eyes flick back to Riley. Riley's expression tightens. She pulls back her arm and whips the cross over Brooklyn's face. The chain flashes through the air, landing with a smack. The cross cut deep into Brooklyn's cheek, leaving a thin red line across her skin. A single drop of blood oozes down her face, like a tear. I take a step back. God, I say under my breath, that any hope I had that this might not get violent drains away. We have to get out of here, now. Let's try this again, Riley says. Suddenly, Brooklyn shifts her weight to the side and whips her bound legs out from under her, ramming a combat boot into Riley's shin. Riley slams into the concrete, her wrist twisting beneath her body when she hits the floor. The cross clatters out of her hand. Bitch! Riley sweeps the hair from her face and pushes herself onto all fours, wincing as she eases weight onto her wrist. Grace moves to help, but Brooklyn slams her feet into Riley again, this time striking her in the ribs. Riley collapses into Alexis, and the two of them stumble to the floor, knocking over a tea candle. The flame sputters and dies. If it weren't for the lock on the basement door, this would be the perfect time to run. The muscles in my legs tense, but I hold myself still. By the time I think of tackling Riley and stealing the key, she's already standing again. Brooklyn's sharp laughter fills the basement. Her eyes flicker with red light, and even though it must be the reflection of the candlelight, they look like they're glowing. Riley, I think it's working, she shouts. I think I'm saved. Oh, my God. Grace bunches her hands near her mouth. Alexis, your sweater. A curl of smoke twists away from Alexis's back, growing thicker as it drifts toward the ceiling. Orange and blue flames lick at the tiny white hearts along her sweater's hem. Shit, Lexi, you're on fire, I say. Alexis twists around, screaming when the fire catches on her sleeve. She tries to pull the sweater off, but her hands shake so badly she can't seem to work the buttons. I grab her arm and yank at the cardigan, not caring when the buttons pop off and clatter to the ground. Alexis flings it away from her body as the fire climbs up the sleeve. The sweater lands on another candle a few feet away, still crackling. The flames eat at a tiny pearl button, and the smoke around it fills the basement with a hazy gray cloud. Grace mutters a string of curses under her breath. She pulls her sweatshirt up over her mouth and stomps the fire out with her sneaker. The fire dies, but the smoke remains. Grace wraps her arms around Alexis's shoulders, pulling her into a hug. Shh, you're fine, Grace whispers. Brooklyn leans against the pillar and takes a shaky breath. I needed a cigarette, but I guess this will do. Riley's cheeks are flushed red, and her hair is more disheveled than I've ever seen it before. She approaches Brooklyn slowly. I dig my teeth into my lower lip, wanting so badly for Brooklyn to kick Riley again, for her to go down long enough for me to steal the key and get out of here. But Riley stops when she reaches Brooklyn's combat boots. You look scared, Ry, Brooklyn says. I thought demons were supposed to cower before your god, not the other way around. I take a deep breath and calmly search the room for something I could use to pick the padlock at the top of the stairs, or even a weapon. I'm past pretending to be on Riley's side, past letting this play out and hoping no one gets hurt. This stops now. Alexis, get me the knife, Riley says, and I freeze. Nothing down here is strong enough to use against the knife. Alexis slides it off the floor. The sound of metal dragging over concrete cuts through the basement. Riley grabs the knife from Alexis. She runs a perfectly manicured nail along the length of the blade. When she reaches the tip, she presses the flesh of her finger into it, drawing a tiny bead of blood. The blood winds around her finger. Good, she says, taking a step closer to Brooklyn. It's sharp. Holding a big knife doesn't make you scary, Brooklyn says. A smile tugs her lips. I have to believe you've got the balls to use it. You don't believe I'll use this? Riley asks. Brooklyn starts to shift her legs, but Riley drops onto them before she can lift them off the ground. She slams the knife handle into the side of Brooklyn's knee, just below the cap. Brooklyn's mouth forms a perfect O, and her skin turns white. Her face crumples, and she lets out a strangled cry. Alexis walks behind Brooklyn and yanks her head back, exposing the pale, fragile skin at her neck. Riley lifts the knife and pushes the tip of the blade to Brooklyn's neck. She turns it as she speaks, twisting the sharp point farther into Brooklyn's skin. Brooklyn cringes and tries to pull away, but the pillar behind her head blocks her in. "Tell me, are you scared yet?" Riley asks.